A reading from the book of Ruth, chapter 1. In the days when the judges ruled, there was a famine in the land, and a certain man of Bethlehem in Judah went to live in the country of Moab, he and his wife and 2 sons. The name of the man was Elimelech, and the name of his wife Naomi, and the names of his 2 sons were Mahlon and Chilion. They were Ephrathites from Bethlehem in Judah. They went into the country of Moab and remained there. But Elimelech, the husband of Naomi, died, and she was left with her 2 sons. These took Moabite wives. The name of the one was Orpah, and the name of the other Ruth. When they had lived there about 10 years, both Mahlon and Chilion also died, so that the woman Naomi was left without her 2 sons and her husband. Then she started to return with her daughters-in-law from the country of Moab, for she had heard in the country of Moab that the Holy One had considered God's people and given them food. So she, Naomi, set out from that place that she had been living, she and her 2 daughters-in-law, and they went on their way to go back to the land of Judah. But Naomi said to her daughters-in-law, "Go back, each of you, to your mother's house. May the Holy One deal kindly with you, as you have dealt with the dead and with me. The Holy One grant that you may find security, each of you, in the house of your husband." Then she kissed them, and they wept aloud. They said to her, "No, we will return with you to your people." But Naomi said, "Turn back, my daughters. Why will you go with me? Do I still have sons in my womb that they may become for you husbands? Turn back, my daughters, and go your way, for I am too old to have a husband. Even if I thought there was hope for me, even if I should have a husband tonight and bear sons, would you then wait until they are grown? Would you refrain from marrying? No, my daughters, it has been far more bitter for me than for you, because the hand of the Holy One has turned against me." Then they wept aloud again. Orpah kissed her mother-in-law goodbye, but Ruth clung to her. So Naomi said, "Look, your sister-in-law has gone back to her people and to her gods. Return after your sister-in-law." But Ruth said, "Do not press me to leave you, to turn back from following you. Where you go, I will go. Where you lodge, I will lodge. Your people will be my people, and your God, my God. Where you die, I will die, and there will I be buried. May the Holy One do thus to me, and more as well, if even death parts me from you." When Naomi saw that Ruth was determined to go with her, she said no more to her. and reading also from the work of the poet Dwight Biddikofer, Morning After, November 6, 2024. There is a hollow in the head, chimes echo from an empty belfry. The better angels have all flown, leaving muck in the mire, untruths now sanctioned, science and justice now chucked in the bin, compassion gone out of fashion. Trumpets have sounded, crass clash with the dirges. Overnight, the picture has changed. Morning horizon hangs hollow. Somewhere a bigger picture, what is, some seeds of goodness left in the mire. Today the sun still rises, perspectives still unfolding, fears of the moment circumspect. Oh, to where have those better angels flown? For the wisdom contained in these holy words, we give God thanks.
Thank you, Martha. Have compassion for everyone you meet, even if they don't want it. What seems conceit, bad manners, or cynicism is always a sign of things no ears have heard, no eyes have seen. You don't know what wars are going on down where the spirit meets the bone. Ring the bells that still can ring. Forget your perfect offering. There is a crack in everything. That's how the light gets in. Disaster struck again. The first time disaster struck, it was a famine that forced Naomi's family to go from Bethlehem, which means house of bread. Isn't that something? No bread, the house of bread. Anyway, it was a famine that forced Naomi's family to go to the country of Moab, a new land where they had to learn new ways of living in a culture unknown to them. Then Naomi's husband died. There was a few good years in between there, but hard times were not over. For a while, things went all right for Naomi, then disaster struck again. Naomi's sons, who had taken 2 women from Moab to marry, Orpah and Ruth, well, they died too. That left Naomi with 2 daughters-in-law in a world where women were simply taken as property. A precarious situation, 3 women alone in the world with few rights and no power. Naomi began a journey back to Judah. She had heard that God had given the people of Judah food once more. On the way, she told Orpah and Ruth, "Go back, each of you, to your mother's house. May the Holy One deal kindly with you, as you have dealt kindly. Have you dealt with the dead and with me?" Orpah and Ruth said they would stay, but Naomi said, "Go on home." Orpah went, Ruth stayed. And we're familiar with the words Ruth spoke, and Martha spoke them so beautifully. "Do not press me to leave you, to turn back from following you. Where you go, I will go. Where you lodge, I will lodge. Your people shall be my people, and your God, my God." This week, disaster struck in the United States of America. Again. If things play out as we have been promised by the president-elect and his posse, many people will find themselves in precarious situations, feeling, I expect, a lot like Naomi, Orpah, and Ruth, frightened, uncertain, frustrated, angry, feeling like we have little power and worried about our rights. diminishing, or completely disappearing. Project 2025 is no longer in the shadow and is now being held up as a sacred text. A text filled with instruction and ways of being in the world to accomplish a particular dream. A dream that will elevate a few people and eviscerate the rest of us. Let me give you one example. Our children's lives are at risk. An increased child tax credit that could lift millions of families out of poverty is almost certainly off the table. There will be little, if any, support for child care. The Board of Education will be dismantled if those coming into power have their way. The list goes on and on. Every person in this country is bound to feel the negative waves of Project 2025. Every person, even the people who voted in a particular way. The sacred text of this new administration, Project 2025. This will have people hurting badly. We are in trouble. There is no getting around it. And I am not here to sugarcoat anything. Jenny? And yet we too have a sacred text. Let's not forget that. It is a text filled with instruction and ways of being in the world to accomplish a particular dream. A dream that will create shalom, comprehensive well-being, beloved community where people thrive. Where people are affirmed and celebrated for who they are because of whose they are, God's precious and beloved children created in God's image. Our sacred text instructs us to do justice. And I'm going to just remind us that we have been working for justice for a long time here at Peace United Church of Christ. And even though the election was disappointing, devastating, we can celebrate, for there has been movement towards justice in this state, even in this election cycle. Missourians voted to increase the state's minimum wage and mandate paid sick leave. That's a big win. Missourians voted to provide the right for reproductive freedom, giving women decision-making power over their own bodies, unlike Ruth, Orpah, and Naomi. Thanks be to God. We are not close to being done, though. Justice, as described in our sacred text, also involves economic well-being, and our sacred text is pretty clear about what economic well-being looks like, where everyone sits under their own vines and fig trees. Of course, this suggests an economic plan where wealth is spread out among all people, where the people own the means of production, not the corporations. Doing justice means not getting caught up in a capitalistic culture where you are never quite good enough or work hard enough, a culture where you step on others to get ahead. Instead, our work for justice includes a revolutionary thing called Sabbath, where we stop and rest so we can take the next steps on the next day. Working for justice also calls for the dismantling of the war machine in this country. No more war, no more learning about war. That is what we are called to work for. That is our instruction manual. Our sacred text instructs us to love kindness. This might be better translated as compassion, to love compassion. Oh, this one is difficult in these days, isn't it? Compassion is a hard thing to find in our hearts right now. It's easy to have compassion for the people who look like us, worship like us, and most particularly this week, vote like us. But right now, it's hard to move beyond that. There are words, though, that we say every Sunday that move us beyond our comfort zones. I've just said them, and I'll say them again, for this is part of our instruction. Have compassion for everyone you meet, even if they don't want it. What seems conceit, bad manners, or cynicism is always a sign of things no ears have heard or eyes have seen. You don't know, you don't know, you don't know what wars are going on down where the spirit meets the bone. These words are not just for show, friends. Dear God, please help us remember to love compassion. Our sacred text instructs us to walk humbly with our God. This means, of course, we need to move through the world in a way that promotes God's dream. Our very lives, how we interact with others, what we do with our money, what we say to people, and how we care for each other, where we focus our time and energy. Our very lives, day to day, hour by hour, moment by moment, must reflect our participation in making God's dream come to pass. A tall order to be sure. I'm sorry, Violet. Our sacred text instructs us to love God above everything and to love our neighbors as we do ourselves. That means, of course, that money, stuff, zip code, education, status are not our gods. We do not worship them or use them to measure worth. Our neighbor is the person next door to us, down the street, across town, and around the world. She is the person that has come to this country without papers. He is the guy who punched a ballot differently than we did. Whew. They are the ones who live in a tent on the side of I-44. We are called to love, period. This is our playbook. This is our agenda. This is our dream because it is God's dream for us. It doesn't matter who our elected officials are. It does, kind of, but you get what I drift. It doesn't matter who our elected officials are or what playbook they choose to follow. We will follow our own sacred text, our own playbook. We will take instruction from our text. We will work toward the dream we find laid out there. On Tuesday, a colleague shared a comic with me. I shared it with you already, and we'll do so again. It's just that important, I think, for us to be thinking about. In this comic, a mother and her child are talking about the election. The child asks, but what if they lose? And the mother responds, and we keep fighting for the rights of all people. The child follows up with another question, and if they win? Oh, dear girl, the mother says, it's the same answer. It's the same answer for us, too. We keep going until beloved community becomes reality, not just for us, but for everyone. Naomi and Ruth did not give up. They went back to Judah. They stuck together. They made a way for themselves. And in case you don't know how this story goes, Ruth became a mother. And if you move through the genealogy, you'll find in her descendants a shepherd boy by the name of David, who became a king. A shepherd boy became a king and changed the world. If you move further along, you will find a carpenter's son who lived a life following in the instruction of his sacred text. He walked through the countryside proclaiming God's love for humanity, prayed for the coming of God's beloved community, God's kingdom, and worked to make it happen. He made a number of people angry along the way, ruffled a lot of empire feathers, but he kept on going. His name was Jesus. Emmanuel, God among us. Look what happens when you don't give up. The world can change. I want to close things up here and share a poem. Ben Allen texted me on Wednesday. So one perk about being a pastor, everybody's sending you their stuff. That's really awesome. I believe this poem was written by Venice Williams. I'd just like to share it with you. You are awakening to the same country you fell asleep to. The very same country. Pull yourself together. And when you see me, Do not ask me, what do we do now? How do we get through the next 4 years? Some of my ancestors dealt with at least 400 years of this under worse conditions. Continue to do the good work. Continue to build bridges, not walls. Continue to lead with compassion. Continue the demanding work of the liberation for all. Continue to dismantle broken systems, large and small. Continue to set the best example for the children. Continue to be a vessel of nourishing joy. Continue right where you are. Right where you live into your days. Do so in the name of the Creator who expects nothing less from each of us. And if you are not continuing all of the above in community, partnership, and collaboration, what is it you have been doing? What is it you are waiting for? We must continue our work. Continue in community, partnership, and collaboration. We simply cannot give up. We cannot give up. Amen. Let us move forward with hope. Let us live with joy, yes, even now. And in these difficult days, let us not forget who we are, and whose we are. That will make all the difference. Amen.